Welcome to the discussion.
One thing I did want to talk to you guys about the increasing the minimum wage to $15 out until 2025. I think so. It increases every year until we reach $15 an hour, and that's at the federal level, right? That means that no one is going to be making less than $15 an hour in 2025 in the whole United States. There are plenty of arguments against it, and there's plenty of arguments for it, right? And those arguments, it's just like because of those arguments, they're so good. Like I'm sitting right in the middle. Like obviously, like bro, like if we could all be making more money, that'd be amazing. But there's like effects of it that could destroy communities, especially those that are in the in the lower bracket, communities that are um, that have like the Black community, the Hispanic communities, right? Communities that don't have people that are that educated that could only get jobs, without any skills. Um, so here's the argument for it or against the $15.
Mm.
That if you were okay, so if you're an employer and you have to give $15 an hour for each person, you're gonna like make your qualifications a little bit stronger, a little bit harder, right? So that means that the people that don't have any qualification and no skills are gonna be left in the water. They're gonna be dead in the water trying to get those jobs. That's number one. Um, and the second one is that there's not going to be that many people getting hired because of the increased wages. Because if you're increasing wages, then as a company, you're going to have to find a way to make up for that increase, either by hiring less people or increasing your prices for what your product is, and it just becomes a big mess.
Okay.
So, like, what do you guys think?
Yeah. So as far as the only thing that I disagree with, right, is making it $15 an hour nationwide, right? Because there's some places where housing costs more than others, right? There's some places where people might need more than 15, right? Like let's say you live in Los Angeles, like $15 an hour still almost is barely living, right? Like you're still kind of barely scraping by if you want to live in the main part
Yeah.
of LA or whatever like that. You're definitely not going to get any property by the beach or anything like that. Like you're fucked, right? As far as the qualifications, I mean, I think that there's always going to be jobs that I think the minimum wage I think should just be like, right, like if we're gonna if we have the whole conversation about like wages never rising, but like inflation going up or whatever like that. We should be like at 15 or probably way past. I think actually I see some studies that say that if wages would have risen at the same
Yeah.
rate, that we'd be like at $22 an hour or something like that, minimum
Hmm.
wage or something like that, right?
Mhm.
So
Yep.
yeah, as far as that, like I don't. If a business can't afford to pay its worker a living wage, then you shouldn't have a business, right? I think that's really
Yeah.
what it comes down to, like because then at that point you're the conversation of, oh well, this person is just trying to run their business and they're trying to make ends meet, like yeah, but at the same time you're exploiting people to make your little business like run. And like, is it worth it for you to have like your little thrift store because that this is what you want to do or whatever, and you're gonna exploit people that you can't pay, right?
Hmm.
So that to me is the issue,
Yeah.
right? So as far as those skills jobs, we have there's every job has training, so even if you can go to basically uh any office job or whatever like that, and they'll give you training for whatever job you're gonna be in. So I don't really see that being an issue either. Um, Yeah, honestly, I don't see it. Give people what they want, right? They deserve to be paid a living wage. I don't understand what the issue is. Just the only issue is, yeah, there's other people who live in other areas that are more expensive. They should probably get more.
Hmm.
Yeah, Gio, what do you think?
Yeah, we can address the questions that he brought up in another way too. Um, So the idea that if you're going to raise the wages for workers, it's it automatically translates to higher cost for the product or like higher price on the product, right? Is the assumption that's made. But what's often left out is that if you are raising wages for workers, especially people like in the middle and lower classes, they are more likely to spend their money, right? Around as opposed to saving it like the upper classes. And by spending the money around, you're actually creating more demand for your product, right? And you
Yeah,
can afford to, so you have higher wages, you have more people spending and more people buying your stuff, and so you create more business and your company grows, right?
right.
And it stimulates the economy, right?
Yeah,
It's like having cold water and then you're suddenly boiling it and you create a lot of activity, right? And more businesses start popping up because of that.
Hmm.
right. So I paid you,
Yeah.
Hector. I'm paying you more, but you were able to go to three different businesses and spend some money, right? Because you had
Exactly.
that extra money.
Yes,
So
sir.
yeah, I think that that's the effect of paying people more. It's actually more money in your pocket to spend on these. I don't understand why these corporations don't understand that shit. It's
Yeah.
weird.
What about this one? All right. What about okay, so you have someone who is now getting $15 an hour, right? And they stay at that job for 10 years. And that's taken away from someone else that would have gotten that job if they would have, moved on. Like for example, like if you were a high school kid, you came out of high school and then you got a job, working at McDonald's, and then 10 years down the line you're still working at McDonald's, right? Like you never really progressed because in your head you're like, dude, $15 an hour, that's great. I could live off this for the rest of my life. That mindset, right? So that's another argument. I'm not saying that's what happens, but that's another argument that people that are against the $15 is saying that is gonna take away jobs from people who are coming in because people are complacent and they stayed at that job because for them it's good pay.
Hmm.
Thoughts?
I think that naturally a lot of people just kind of look for better, right? So like if you're kind of like at what everyone is 15, like naturally like you're probably gonna look for a better job. I think it's just not feasible to like live off of 15, even like I said, even around here, right? Like you just can't do it, right? So I don't think that it's at all for helping people like to flip their life around. Like I think it's more making up for the fact that they've been
Yeah.
fucking us for so long.
Hmm.
Hmm. Another reason why I don't think that would be realistic, and it's actually the problem that we're having right now, right? Is inflation causes things to rise in price, and all of a sudden, $15 is not going to be enough to survive off of. And actually, so the attempt to raise wages to $15 an hour is an attempt to counteract inflation, right? Because like you, Alan said, right, inflation has driven prices up, and so now we're trying to accommodate that and trying to stabilize things by raising
Hmm.
wages up to $15 an hour. And that's not going to last forever. Eventually, we're going to have to raise wages again, you know,
Hmm.
because of inflation.
Hmm.
Yeah, because if we should already be at 20 fucking two, like we said, like I think I saw a study a long time ago. This was like a year or 2 years ago that I saw that, right? So we're already, when we get to 15, which they say is going to be implemented within the next 4 years, they said, or five or whatever.
Hmm.
By that time, we should already be like at 27, 28, right? So we're always going to be behind the ball like when it comes to fucking wages because we allow these corporations to fuck us for so long, right? And now to them, for them to go to from minimum wage to what it is to like all the way to 22, 23, 24, whatever it's going to be, like to them it seems like it's impossible, right?
Hmm.
Or it's not, they can do it, they just don't want to. It's just too much of an increase for them. Just they just don't want to, right? That's really what it is, because there's corporations that could definitely do it, right?
Yeah. And those corporations, like McDonald's or any other corporation, they don't necessarily have to increase their prices, right? The CEOs or the board of directors can take a pay cut, right? And say that this is what we want. We want to treat our workers right, and we're not going to pass it on to the consumer, but we're going to actually, contribute, sacrifice a little bit their $1 billion check to help their workers.
Yeah, and I think that I think I've seen a meme, but I also looked it up. I saw I think another YouTuber, I think maybe David Packman was talking about that. That in Denmark or Sweden, I think something like that, they pay their workers 18 or like almost $19 an hour at McDonald's, and the price for their Big Mac hasn't gone up, like, in the last decade or whatever. So yeah, it's not true. Pay the people. That's really what it comes down to. Pay the
Pay
people.
the people.
Another point that I think almost makes the argument irrelevant is that a lot of these jobs, a lot of these low skilled jobs, are going to be automated at some point, right? And so that's just puts another wrench in the machine, and it just creates more complexity in how we're going to solve this problem, right? And raising they say if you're going to raise wages, then these companies are just going to automate, right? Because they're raising wages, it's cheaper. It's going to at some point it's going to be cheaper to just build a machine that can do a lot of these jobs. But the reality is they're automating anyways, right? They're already innovating these things. They're putting kiosks in these places so you can have less staff, and so that's already happening. And so this is just another thing that we need to deal with as time goes on.
Yeah, and in the last presidential debate, or in the last presidential race, I would say, right, we had people like Andrew Yang advocating for universal basic income, right?
Yang
And Yang Gang, and that goes back to Hector, like you were saying, oh, people would get complacent with $15. Well, people were also saying that about Andrew Yang's UBI, right? They were saying, well, if you give somebody $2,000 every month, they're not going to want to work. They're not going to want to. It's like, really? Well, what can you do with $2,000 a month? Like in Los Angeles, in New York, in places in any urban area, you're not going to be able to cut it, right? So you would still work your 9 to 5 and probably use that $2,000 extra to just not be drowning, right? To just that feeling of not fucking drowning. Like, all Americans would get rid of that, right? Because now they have $2,000 legit every month to spend on food or whatever it is. So
GameStop stock.
Yeah, at GameStop. Yeah, buy your GameStop. But you'll know for sure at least that you're not going to starve, right? And that is like a huge load off on any person, right? But then there's people who they have their 9 to 5 and they're getting their extra $2,000 and they're like, yo, I always wanted to travel, right? So you're spending more money on the economy, right? Or I always wanted to start my own little house business from home, right? And now you're stimulating the economy even more, right? So just giving people more money is just going to be more ideas out there that are going to be done, more inventions, more people starting businesses, startups, more political power for people to donate to political candidates that they care about. Because I know that there's a lot of people that want to, but they just don't have the extra money to donate, right? So they just don't, right? So more money, more political power. Maybe that's what they're all afraid of. Maybe they're afraid of that. If we have more money in our pocket, we might use it for our political advantage.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So the two main players in this this battle against the minimum wage is the people that own businesses, obviously, and businesses themselves, and then the people who are worried about the effects that it will have on lower class, communities and people with no skills. Which is, I'm more sympathetic to that argument and less to the ones about the businesses. I'm not really worried about the business. I think they'll be fine. Like you guys said, they'll figure it out. Like Gio said, they're already trying to, increase their revenues and all that by other means than hiring employees. So. But yeah, so bottom line, I think, pay the people, right?
Yep.
PTP?
Yeah, PTP.
Hey guys, don't forget to like and subscribe if you like what you hear. And if you want to hear some of the issues that you care about discussed on Discussion Lounge, go ahead and drop them in the comment section.